we should talk about the difference between censorship and freedom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening now, I think, is restriction in terms of funding by NIH, and therefore what people work on, what they're allowed, what questions are they allowed to ask. I think there's been a serious funneling and restriction of freedom for whatever reason, and I'm not going to ascribe it politically. I'm not going to, maybe just a wave of what's happened. It's gotten very everybody's looking at it very monopically. They're one eye, and they only have a certain very narrow band of what they think is right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gotten concentrated to a few hands to make the decision about where that money goes. So even though it gets distributed widely in small pots, when you're in academia and there's somebody making the decision and this is what their opinion is and they're only going to, fund that, you tell them what they want to hear. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what's happening. The idea of coming up with some radically different idea that actually is counter to the narrative that this small group of people are making the decisions up at the granting agency, that you can't make some wild, hypothesis that's against what they think. It just doesn't get funded.
Sure. Right.
That's a restriction of academic freedom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the deciding agencies should be agnostic to what they think, any given theory is in any scientific area. It should be, is this person credentialed? Did they write something coherent? And then, yes, we'll fund it. Instead of, oh, yeah, what they're going to do is counter to what I think, and therefore I'm not going to fund it. So we need reform at the funding agencies because that will reform academia, because academia is only going to voice what they know will get funded.
Right.
And that's, so that's what's happening now is a restriction on academic freedom because the structure of the grant making has become too concentrated, and the people who, make those decisions decide only if their viewpoint is supported.
Right.
So it's self-reinforcing, and that's a restriction on freedom.
Sure. Sure.
That's different than some of the things that happened during the pandemic with censorship that we know about, like the Twitter files, et cetera.
Yep.
And those were academics that got totally censored.